right, guys, let's welcome back Diamond and Josh of Tetrarch back to the Talk Toomey podcast. Diamond, Josh, how are we doing today?
Doing fantastic.
Yeah, doing awesome.
Good. I finally listened to the entire album a couple of days ago, The Ugly Side of Me, out May 9th, Napalm Records, and just first thing out the gate, it's just it sounds so good. Like it's crushing. Like I've gotten to the point now where like if somebody sends me a song, I won't listen to it like on my phone speaker. Like I have to wait till the car or at least until I get home or something. And I checked it out when I got home, and I was just like, oh my God, sounds great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Josh was very anal about the mix.
So yeah, probably drove him crazy, but
yeah, a few mixes, but we finally got it together.
Who produced this one?
We co-produced it with Dave Otero.
Okay,
so same as Unstable, yeah.
Good. Any different approach this time, kind of going into the album than maybe in the past?
I would say, with every album, we're kind of always learning from the last. And I think a big thing with this one, like just kind of hitting on the co-producing on this one is like every time we've gone to the studio, we've learned more and more as we watch, Dave work or anywhere we've ever gone. So I feel like the songwriting process this time, we had a lot more of an idea of what a song could sound like, based on like even us learning how to do some electronics and some different sounds that maybe we would have had to completely outsource, for things that aren't, we don't play. This time we were able to kind of do some of that stuff ourselves, hear songs come together a little faster. So I think just knowing kind of what to do a little more allowed us to be a little more creative, just on like a technical side.
Yeah. Did you do a lot of pre-production? I see like studio speakers behind you, so I'm assuming you do some home recording too. So were these songs pretty well mapped out going into the studio, or were they, kind of here's what we're thinking? What do you think?
The goal is always to go in as as prepared as possible. So we always, this time we're going to go in way more prepared than we were for Unstable. It didn't happen. So we went, and like when we went in, we had like 20 or so like bare bones like songs. So just like the structure, maybe some vocals, maybe some didn't, kind of just like bare bones of like these are pretty cool and we can see them going somewhere. And then we like while we were there, we kind of worked on all of them as if they were all going to be on the record, and then whittled them down to what we thought were the 10 best as they started coming together more and more. So some of them were further along than others. Like there would be one or two where it was like, it's pretty close to done. And then there was some like Parasite that we rewrote like 4 times. Like each Parasite sounds nothing like the one that came out. So on a scale of 1 to 10 of preparedness, I'd give us a solid 3.
I say 5. I say 5.
I think if you had 20 songs and rough structures and things like that, that sounds like a 5. Like you didn't go in and just play and then here are the songs. Here are 10 songs. We're out. Now mix it. Diamond, you're singing on this one. What spurred that?
I think Josh is always like, and more people than Josh too have like brought it up to me. Like in the past, just like, oh, you should try to sing on this or that or whatever. And on the last record, I sang some like backup, like some harmonies and stuff like that. But nothing really up front. And then this record again, like Josh brought it up and I kind of was like, yeah, I think it would actually be kind of like something different and cool, like cool little dynamic shift to try singing one of the verses or 2 of the verses, just see what it sounds like. And they came out sounding pretty cool. And so we were like, I think that'll be something cool. Like when people listen, they don't expect it all. And when they hear it, they're like, oh shit, is that Diamond? That's really cool. So it was something just cool that, had been tossed around for a long time. And I finally got the guts to do it. And it just felt like kind of the right time,
How nervous were you kind of going into that? Like, did you hearing yourself back in the headphones and all that stuff? And you're just like, oh God, do I really sound like that?
I mean, I think it's kind of, I've said this to somebody before, but like on Unstable, I think even when I did like kind of the harmonies and stuff, it was like I was really nervous. It was really like awkward for me because I was like, ugh, but I think so much has happened for us in our band since Unstable to now that like I'm a much more like confident person in our craft now than I was. We've grown so much that when it came up this time, I was like, okay, sure. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I wasn't super nervous about it or like second guessing or anything. I just kind of was like, okay, cool. Like, so I think it was also the right time because I was like mentally ready to do it, like I wasn't so nervous or like, oh no, I can't, so that also helped.
Josh, were you worried she'd be too good?
I mean, I think her voice is amazing. I've been pushing her to like, sing and stuff for a good while, even going back to Unstable. I think it adds a cool dynamic to the band. And I think especially live, it's going to be really cool when people hear, and maybe selfishly one day I'm like, maybe she'll sing a whole song and I can get some water during a set, but we'll see. It's just a cool element. It's like, we have no egos in the band about any of that kind of stuff. Like whatever's going to be coolest for the song is what we want to do. And I think that the part she sang on came out awesome.
Were you hearing her like sing, going down the road in the van or the bus or whatever, and you're like, you should really sing. You should do this. Like, she's singing along to the radio or whatever's coming on.
I mean, I've always, we've known each other since we were so young, so I've always heard like Diamond just humming melodies and singing parts that are stuck in her head and stuff like that. So it's like I've always known like Diamond can sing. It's just like guitar has always been her passion. But yeah, just especially when we especially on these songs, like when we actually demoed it out, because last album was kind of like we just threw her into the studio on the mic and we're like, all right, let's try it. And this time we actually, like with Never Again Parasite, we got to actually demo it at home and try some things and hear it before we even go to the studio. We're like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So
speaking of you guys playing together for so long, one of my favorite things when it pops up is like you guys at the talent show or whatever, and it's like little baby Diamond, like little baby emo metalcore Diamond up there, and and I love when those videos pop back up.
It's so funny too because like we went to like a little, and I wish there was two distinct talent shows I can remember. One was like the very first one we played. They called it the Bean at our school because it was supposed to be like a little coffee bean experience. We clearly didn't understand the assignment.
You didn't get the memo.
But there's two. We played one where we played it like in what was our auditorium, and it was like first time we used wirelesses. The first time we were like, let's try to headbang. Like there's that one, and then there's the one that circulates online where it's like we're in this room and there's a bunch of parents and like so that's the one that people see. I wish I could find the other one because that one, it was like the breakthrough for us. We were like, yeah, this is how we do it, But it is funny to see, like when you look back, you always smile at it because you just realize how far we've come and think about the journey,
And how serious things felt even then.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you have passes made up, like that first weekend tour where you go to Kinko's or get whatever it is now, and then get some passes made up for the weekend.
Even better, we put the wirelesses on and we're like, hey, I think we had just watched like Metallica Cunning Stunts or something like that, where they like come through with the lights on and the crowd and stuff like that. We're like, what if we came to the stage through the crowd? We like got all set up. We went outside, walked around the whole building and came in. Nobody cared. But yeah, it was, we went through wirelesses.
I really forgot about that, but
yeah,
that did happen.
Except our bass player, he didn't want to do it. I think at the time it was like one of our first.
That's why he's not with you guys anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't see the vision.
Exactly.
Yeah, the wireless is probably picking up like AM radio stations nearby, and so you're like,
that was my Marshall combo amp. That was constantly always picking up radio stations.
Or that old, I don't even know if you guys are old enough to do this or not, but like the old cell phones when you'd have it on your amp, and you would know you're about to get a phone call before it rang because it was like too fun. Well, last time we talked, Diamond, you were giving you had a couple of extra guitars for somebody, but you wouldn't tell me. And then like 2 days later, you're hanging out with Head from Corn. Tell me the process of like going to a show with a guitar. Like, did they give you any grief getting in or anything like that? Trying to get it in to give to Head.
So the way that we were able to make it happen was so that show was like their 25th anniversary or 20th anniversary or whatever that they were doing in LA. But the tour that they were on at the time, it was them and Gojira and Spirit Box, I think. But one of my guitar techs for Gojira now. So when I found out about the show, I was like, because he had been wanting me to bring a guitar so he can check it out and give one to Christian in Gojira. So I was like, when I saw the show was happening, I was like, dude, I got to give a guitar to Head. Like, this is like something I've always wanted to do. So he was like, okay, let me talk to, because strangely enough, it's crazy. Like, I know so many people that like work with Korn or surround Korn, but like I never met them myself. So he was like, let me talk to them and see. And so he was like, but bring the guitar, like I'll put it in my bus or I'll bring it backstage and then, we'll see what's up or whatever. So like I brought it and like, he talked to their security guy, which knew who I was. And he was like, oh, hell yeah, Diamond. Yeah, come on. So like we went back there and like he was a super cool dude. He was like talking to everyone. He was like, you know who Diamond is? You know who Diamond is? And they're like, yeah. And they're just so like on another stratosphere that it's just like, but everyone's like, yeah, dude. And so it was really cool. He opened the guitar and like was genuinely just like shocked and thought it was super cool. And he was just such a nice guy. It was like a really full circle, like cool experience to have because I've always had like that dream to like, if I get a signature one day, I want to give them to the guys that I literally probably wouldn't be here playing without because they inspired me so much. And he was like, obviously in my top two, so it was really cool to be able to give him that, tell him thank you, and he was just super awesome about it.
Were you worried at all that Monkey would walk through and be like, what the hell?
I'd be like, sorry, dude.
You guys could share it.
No, Monkey's awesome too. I just like, I've always been, Head, like, especially back when I used to watch a lot of like Korn DVDs and stuff. Head was the guy doing most of like the weird sounds and like he did some singing and he did all the cool effects and all that. So he was always just like my favorite,
Yeah, when he did that first solo record, I was like, man, he sounds a lot like Jonathan. Like that first Love and Death. I was like, this is like just a random Korn record almost.
The songs sound like you realize how much he wrote in Clever too, because you can hear like, a lot of that in Love and Death. Yeah.
That's one thing with the Seven Dust guys. Like they've all done kind of solo records, and their solo records sound like what they bring to the band. Like John Connolly's have a certain sound, and Clint's have a certain sound, and so it's funny. You can kind of just like, oh, that's the part that you write in Seven Dust.
Yeah,
a whole record of that
for sure.
I have just some random stuff written down because, like I said, we've kind of talked about the record stuff before. You guys are kind of, in the whole new metal category or whatnot, but we've also got a ton of new metal bands reuniting for festivals. I mean, Louder Than Life this year, there's like Dryco Logic and Snot and Spineshank, just all kinds of crazy bands kind of coming out of the woodwork. What's one or two bands that you guys wish would kind of come back? Is there anything that kind of comes to your mind when you think of new metal bands that are defunct now that you would like to see again?
I feel like the ones we, that we grew up with that had kind of gone away for a while, I feel like they all are already back. I would say like we were super stoked on the Mudvayne, coming back, and went to see them in Denver when we were working on the album and everything. So we were stoked on that.
Yeah, I agree. That would probably be if you asked me this like a couple years ago, I would have 100% been like Mudvayne. But like most of the bands that like we love so much, like are like, not to sound cliche, but like still the biggest ones, reigning supreme, Deftones, Slipknot, Korn, like all Limp Bizkit coming back too is another one that have just been our favorites. What's I guess like what's crazy is a lot like people are gonna be like, that's so lame. But before our last album came out, I had never heard an Edema song in my life. Like seriously never heard. And everyone was like, the only reason I heard them is because everyone was like, they have an album called Unstable. And we were like, oh boy, let's check this out. And so now everyone's like, he sounds just like, you know, the guy from Edema. So like I've got into like some of their stuff now through people just constantly saying that's what we sound like. But I literally had never heard, I might have heard Giving In, but other than that, I had never heard like a song by them. So like now, like there's a slew of songs by them that I like. So it'd be cool to see, you know, some of that live, you know what I mean? But other than that, I think Josh hit the nail on the head. Like I'm so stoked with just the ones that we love already still being out.
Yeah, there's been some like troopers that have like stayed the course, you know, Head PE, Non-Point, all those guys kind of just constantly staying, and then now there's a bunch coming back around again.
Yeah.
I have two props I'm going to pull up. I'm going to pull up two Ozfests, and I would see which one you prefer. We debated this on another episode. First one is Ozfest 2000. Okay. And let's see here. Let me pull it up for myself here on this side here. We'll just kind of run down the list here if it'll open for me. So Ozfest 2000 is Ozzy, Pantera, Godsmack, Incubus, Static X, Methods of Mayhem, POD. I believe that's Queens of the Stone Age at the bottom there. Soulfly, Kitty, Disturbed, Shovel, Slaves on Dope, Taproot, Pitch Shifter, Reveille, Pump Jack, Apartment 26, Crazy Town, The Deadlights, and Primer 55.
Primer 55.
Okay. It's funny seeing Disturbed's name so
small
on there,
right? Yeah, there's a few that sometimes you're just like, wow, they were opening on the other stage there. And then Ozfest 2001.
I can already tell you which one, just from scanning. This one for sure.
Yeah, 2001.
We'll just run through this one. We'll run through this one. All right, well, the one you're picking is Black Sabbath, Slipknot, Linkin Park, Disturbed, Mudvayne, The Union Underground, Hatebreed, Systematic, OTEP, No One, Godhead, Pressure 4-5, Drowning Pool, American Head Charge, Marilyn Manson, Papa Roach, Crazy Town, Black Label Society, Taproot, Non-Point, Spy Jake, Pure Rubbish, and no idea who that other band is.
Yeah, I can't tell.
I'll go today. Let's go.
Yeah, I would go to that today, right now.
Let's go right now. Let's see if I can zoom in on that one. I have no idea what the one down the corner is. Oh, no one. Somebody's gonna be like, dude, that is blah, blah, blah. You know, they're gonna roast me for that one.
I'm zooming in. BC. Is this a
I don't got my glasses.
I don't know.
We'll just say that was like a sponsor or something. Yeah, I'm not sure that one. I mean, it's probably gonna be like somebody crazy, like, I can't believe you guys didn't know that. Posers.
Ozfest 2001. Let's see.
I guess we could have done that too.
We got,
actually, I guess there's another one down here at the bottom too. There's something freak show, but I guess that was probably like a side stage thing.
Beautiful Creatures.
Oh, okay. That was like a side project or something, I think. It was somebody's band after their band, if I remember correctly. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're typing away. This is the most people talked about Beautiful Creatures in 20 years.
It says guitars DJ Ashba.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So DJ Ashba's band.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then like some of the guys from Bang Tango. Alex Grassi. He's still out there doing stuff. But yeah, so that was the two Ozfests there, kind of back to back, because we were talking. I went to like 3 or 4 of that Ozfest 2000. I know I saw Ozfest 2001. I think I only saw one of those, but you know, Pantera right into Ozzy every night was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
and then that side, you know, and then the side stage of Soulfly, Kitty, little brand new Disturbed, all that stuff out there. So that's good stuff. Good times. But.
Yeah, we were too young. We never got to see like a proper Ozfest. So I do wish I had Ozfest DVDs, but I never got to go to an Ozfest, which would have been cool.
I think I went to. You guys are from Atlanta, right? Like originally from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I think I went to a couple of Warped Tours down there.
Yeah.
you know, and then in the late 2000s, you know, like with like A Day to Remember and like
I think
drugs and things like that.
I think I went to Warped 2009 or something. I saw A Day to Remember at one of them.
For us, it was like Mayhem was like the big
Mayhem Fest was like our thing.
Yeah.
We would go to every year. But of course, we had friends that went to Warped every year. So, yeah.
But the crazy thing about Warped is, you know, you didn't know when anybody was playing until you got there. Like and there was one year I went and I went for like a couple of specific bands, and I saw a friend of mine, and I'm talking to her in the crowd, and she's like, who are you here to see? And I was like, oh, Snapcase. And then she's like, oh, they're playing right now. And I'm like, oh shit. And I, you know, I'd been talking to her for 20 minutes. And so by the time I got to that stage, they were like, thank you. Good night. You know, and then the next year I was like, I'm not going to miss anybody. And I really wanted to see Alien Ant Farm. That's like when they first came out and all this other stuff. So I was like, I'm not going to miss them. And I got there like super early in the day. And then I saw the list, and they were the last band of the night. They went on after. they went on after 3:11. So I was just like, oh, great.
Yeah, that is crazy how Warped Tour does that. It's like you never know what time you're going to play every day. Dude, playing that sounds so brutal. Like one day you play at freaking 9 p.m. and the next day you play at 9 a.m. Like,
especially in a van.
Especially in a van. That's what I mean. Yeah. Yep.
When it came to the band kind of coming up, when did you guys start getting like label attention? Like what was the thing that kind of sparked people kind of sniffing around you guys?
We got label attention pretty early. Right out of high school. We were hit up by, and at the time, you know, it was like still a pretty big metal label. We got hit up by Roadrunner, and that was like the very first like label relationship we had with Monty Connor and like Mike Gitter and stuff. And they like were very like, we would talk to them like every other day, you know, but it was very much like touch and go, because it was like we were writing like a ton of songs, and they would be like, oh, this one was it. Or like one of them would be like, this one's sick. And the other would be like, oh, I want to hear more. And it just became kind of like, I wouldn't tell this story if it wasn't now. Now I don't care. They wouldn't care. But it was like very like, you know, like off and on, back and forth. But for years, like they were very like, just like corresponsive with us a lot. And along with that, we started getting hit up by some others, but nothing ever like truly like materialized. And I always kind of like, when you're young at the time, you're like, oh, but like as things like start to progress, you realize like that just wasn't like meant for me. And like what we ended up with and like the way things panned out for us was so much huger. Like, I don't know what would have happened if at the time when we were 17 years old, we signed with them, or like, you know, when we're, you know what I mean? So like, it's interesting how it all progressed, and like all these relationships led to other things and led to different opportunities and different things like that. But we started our like industry correspondence, I would call it, pretty early on. Like there was a lot of people buzzing around us pretty early on. So
was it a MySpace thing? Was it like something online catching people's eye, or was it just word of mouth, you know, selling out shows? Like what kind of drew the people in, I guess?
Do you remember, Josh?
It would have been, I don't know if it was like, we dabbled in MySpace, but it was like at the tail end kind of thing. So I can't remember if it was like through there or like the start of, you know, as Facebook was growing or what. But yeah, it was definitely from online. You know, we played so many shows locally like that. I wouldn't say necessarily built up like this huge crazy fan base. It just got us like used to playing live. Like we would play the tiniest little places every single weekend. Sometimes we'd play back-to-back shows at the same place, like Friday and Saturday. Anywhere they'd let us, we would play. So it was, but yeah, I would say it was mostly just through online, like the songs, and
Because we started uploading our songs online, like as soon as we, started writing them. So from like the inception of our first songs that sounded like thrash metal, like all the way to now, we were always like kind of putting our songs out there in some kind of way. They found one of them. It was a song that we had, I remember, and it was like kind of dark and like a little metalcore-y. But they really liked that one track, and that kind of sparked that journey.
Wait, roughly what year was that? Like when
2000, I don't even know. 2000, early 2010s, I guess.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I was kind of going back to see, I don't want to be like, how did the band come together, all that nonsense, but just kind of what sparked everyone's interest in you guys, and kind of is there any quote unquote advice you would have for maybe people trying to put your stuff out there? Because I mean, I did the same thing. It's like, anytime you got rejected, you're like, this is just never going to happen. This is nothing that's ever going to materialize. And then I think it was, I was on a podcast the other day and talking about that. It's like, it happens when you least expect it. It's like dating or something. It's like you meet the one when you're not trying to meet the one, when you're not trying so hard, somebody will come along.
Yeah, I think my advice would be like the same advice I would give a younger version of me, is that like, just because somebody tells you no, that doesn't mean that there's not a better opportunity around the corner. Because that's something we've always felt with Tetrarch, is like, we've never let any, what might be like a bummer, some news to hear, like, oh, that sucks. We've never let that define who we are. And I think that's like the biggest testament to who, we are as a band, is that like, we're going to keep going, keep pushing no matter what. And, now you look back at some of the stuff that people have told you no, and you're just like, we're way better off, for it now. So just to not let, no define you, I guess that'd be my advice to even myself.
Yeah, I think once because it was like we were told no, and we've been told no a million times. I think every successful artist has said that.
Right.
But it was always like, for us, it was this like game of like, no, but they like, no one ever really wanted to like, just let us go on by our business. It was always like, no, but,
always would check in.
But always still checking in. So like when you're really young, that can like play with you sometimes. You're like, why do they keep hitting? You know what I mean? But I think it was when we really decided to like take things into our own hands. That's when everything just blew up for us. Like, it was like, when we were like, we don't, we can do this part. So we know Tetrarch better than anybody knows Tetrarch. We know how to market Tetrarch better than anyone knows how to market Tetrarch. We know how to do this, that, and the other. That's when it clicked for everyone else. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of artists will tell you that too. Like, it's like, as soon as you got to do the work for yourselves. Like, no one wants to do the work for you. You know what I mean? So we built, like Josh said, we built this band on just kind of like always having goals and pushing forward no matter what. Like, whether it was when we were in a van, sleeping at Walmart, or, playing little bars to two people, like, we never let it get us down. And we always were like, this is just a means to an end. It's like, this is how it's going to be forever. This is just making us better. And we always could just laugh about it and just like move on. Like, we never like really, we've never had these periods where we're just like depressed of like, oh, or this, like, we just always are like, that's cool. Like, this is making us better. And even like when I say like, when we were playing like clubs to like no one, I can tell that we played those clubs to no one when we play huge festivals now. And when we're on big tours now, I'm like, you could probably like see the four of us walking down the street and put our instruments in our hands and be like, put on a freaking show. And we will give you like one of the best shows you've ever seen. Not to sound like, condescending or anything like that, or cocky, but it's like, it's just because we've been doing
we're
it.
confident in that. Yeah.
We're confident in that. You know what I mean? And I think that comes from the fact that we did play so many shows where we had to pull everything out of us when there was no one there. We're playing to bar chairs. You know what I mean? So it's like, looking back, those experiences were really awesome. So I think like just telling like Josh said, our younger selves, which we did a pretty good job telling our younger selves, just like, look at everything as like a means to an end. You know what I mean? This is making you better. Just make sure you have goals and stuff in place. and that you're not being stagnant, but like just just keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Those no people shows are tough. I played a show once where we set up, walked out on stage. There was a sound guy and a bartender, and there was another room that had like pool tables and stuff and a closed off door. And we literally went on to the sound person and the bartender, and then they eventually went to the other room too.
Yep.
And we're like, all right, well, I guess we're doing a quick rehearsal. And
we had that something similar in like Birmingham, Alabama. One of our first,
I was in Alabama too. Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, we played and it was like not even the sound guy was in there. Like he took a smoke break as soon as we got plugged in. And it was literally just the mom of like a drummer of one of the bands, not even the
It was like the girlfriend
show.
of one of the band members.
Yeah.
And she didn't want to leave. You could tell she just felt bad. She was the only one in there.
And we put on a full show, like head banging, like, hey, like all that stuff. Like
trying to get her to start clapping along.
So now
she hung with us as long as she could. I think she ended up walking out like maybe 1 or 2 songs before the end. She just drifted out. But I could tell she was in there the whole time just because she felt bad. And like going back to labels too, our very first tour, we played in New York City. Very, very first tour. Like we had never been on tour before.
First time driving a van around.
Van and trailer through New York City, Manhattan.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, that's awful.
Terrible it is. We didn't have a driver, so self-driving, everything was just, and to just set the scene for you, at the time, Monty Connor was going to coming to that show. So we were like, okay, we gotta make sure this is a great show. Monty's going to be there. We're playing this place called Sullivan Hall, which we had never heard of, but whatever. So before we even got there, something was wrong with Josh's guitar. So like we were like, we need to go to a guitar center, but we got mixed up with the bridges. There's like the Lincoln Bridge and there are the tunnels to get into the city. We went to the wrong tunnel. They're like, no, you got to go to another tunnel with a trailer to come through. Blah, blah. So that had us all late. So we finally get in, don't have time to go to Guitar Center. So Josh is like, I'm just going to have to use one of your guitars, which was like my Gibson Les Paul, like standard. That was like, what's that? I don't even, coffee colored or something. I don't know. Something that didn't fit him at all, but
tobacco burst or something.
So we get there late. And when we get there, because there's no like, I guess, I don't know if the door wasn't open or there's no box up or something. Monty was just like sitting on the curb, just like waiting for us to show up. And we're like, nice. Oh, fuck, So our bass player is driving. He pulls up. All the rest of us get out of the car. We go say hey to him and stuff. And he's like, hey, he was in a fine mood. Like he was great. Like everything was cool. He's cool, dude. And our bass player, he got really flustered and he couldn't. Cars were honking at him because he's in the middle of the street, and he floors the van and sideswipes this like car in front of the venue. And Monty's like, oh my God, did you guys see that van hit that car? The car's like smashed, side of the car's just wrecked. And we're standing there. Josh is on his hands and knees like this. And like, he finally, like it clicked to Monty and he like looked at us and goes, was that your van? And we were like, yep. And he's like, oh no. So anyway, bass player parks down the way. We get set up and everything for the show. And it's just him and an old high school friend in the room, just 2 people in the room. So we still have to like put on this crazy show. Josh was like, he did like the haze, like, hey, and everything. And like, I just say this in vision. Monty's in the middle of the room and he's just like, by himself. It was like the most embarrassing moment in our band's history, probably one of them.
I think we went home the next day. We were supposed to stay for like a couple days to do like a listening party for an EP at like Duff's in Brooklyn or something like that. And we were just like, let's go home.
Oh boy. Yeah. So anyway, those are the experiences that made us better.
Oh yeah. Those are definitely the worst, man. But I mean, Monty probably, he's seen a bazillion bands and there's still, and to this day, you know, if it says A&R Monty Connor, like I'm going to check it out because he has the ears of like my childhood or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember the first time I tried to drive a van in a trailer. I think it is through the Lincoln Tunnel, and like they freaked out on me. They're like, "What are you thinking?" You know, like those New York cops are just like freaking out on me, and I'm like, "I'm from Tennessee. I don't know what I'm doing."
Know, you know?
And the worst part is we rerouted to go to the right one, and we ended up back at the same tunnel. So they sent us around twice. So
Yeah.
we went to the wrong tunnel, put it in. We're like, all right. It was just a mess. It was like
We
third
ended up
time.
in Jersey at one point.
Yeah.
Ended up in New Jersey. It was just like we ended like when we got to the venue, it was like real late. You know,
Yeah.
we were just a little late. It was nuts.
Those are the worst though. I mean, you hear bands talk about like they do showcases in a rehearsal studio or something, and you're just like, how do you do that to like a couch of a couple of A&R people? And you're like, but you still have to put on that show and show them what you can do and stuff. And I'm like, that just sounds insane to me. Like that's the nerves would just be taking over my body at that point.
You definitely got to pull it out of you, man.
Yeah. Well, what's next for Tetrarch? What's the touring plans, summer plans, all that good stuff?
Yeah, we're going to Europe for the first time this summer. I'm going to do some festivals over there and some other dates as well. And you know, we're always got things in the US in the works. So a lot of touring on this album and just getting as many people listening and you know, coming to see us.
Nice. And just end with the typical, where can they follow you on the internet?
Everywhere, man. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just wherever. Type in Tetrarch. I'm sure we have your social platform of choice.
All right. All right. Well, once again, the new album, The Ugly Side of Me, out May 9th, correct?
Yes.
On Napalm Records. And Josh Diamond, always great to catch up with you, and can't wait to see you guys live again.
Same to
Thank
you.
you. Can't wait to see you, man.
All right, you guys take care.
All righty.
Thanks, you too.
See you.